Conspiracy Theories and Chill. Oh, it's not going yet. Or maybe it is. Now it says it is. So come on in. This is Conspiracy Theories and Chill. We're going to start in just a minute. We have an interview tonight, so I'm pretty excited about that. It's a big deal. Come on in. I give you a little bit of time to like and share and settle in, invite your friends. We like to have a big group for this show, and I'm anticipating a lot of people to come in. Plus, I already done told somebody that you guys were going to show up. So, like I said, we have a guest over, so we got to be on our best behavior. But let's see. I'm going to take out the music real quick and switch over to my headphones because I want to be able to talk to the guest, and I don't want there to be an echo for you guys. So I'm going to put in a headphone and make sure that I can hear her and that we're all good with the audio there. And as long as that is all set, I'll be ready to bring her in real soon. So I got to get something really quick though. Just 1 second. I forgot to get my phone, and I have to make sure that I'm not sitting here talking to myself. I've done that. I've done that before. And I'm trying not to make those kind of rookie mistakes anymore, but it looks like we're good. We got a few people here. Hold on. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. She's laughing at me. Our guest is laughing at me now. But it looks like we got some people here. You guys share it out. Get it out. We want a good audience, a good crowd, a good group in here so we can have a good discussion. So that's what this is. This is going to be a discussion, and I hope that we learn something. I hope that we provide a good atmosphere, that we get to have a productive discussion with Roxii. That's our guest today. Roxii is an activist. She is involved in the fight against mandatory vaccinations, and she's a real person with a belief that may contradict with your beliefs, but if it does, I ask that you just challenge us and join the conversation and ask things, and we'll include you in the conversation. That's what we do here. So you will be part of the discussion. Don't feel like you'll be left out. We will represent you and ask the things that you want asked. But without any further ado, if you're ready, I want to bring in the guest, Roxii Love, who's been good enough to appear on Conspiracy Theories and Chill with us tonight. So let me bring her up into the feed, and hopefully that works. She should come up on screen with me. There she is.
Hey, I can see you, but I see me. Am I supposed to see you?
You see me?
I do not see you.
Oh, you just see you?
I just see me.
Okay, you'll be able to see comments that I put up too. The audience is seeing both of us side by side, though.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't.
I promise they are. They're seeing it. I'm looking at it on the feed on my phone. We have 6 people here.
I can see it. I'm good. I can see me and my dog.
I love your dog, by the way. I wanted to say something about it when we were getting ready to start the show.
Yeah.
But I love your dog, and it's a pit bull, right?
She is a pit bull. Yes.
Yeah, it's a pit bull. That's what I thought. I love pit bulls, and they get a bad rap.
They do. They're angels. They really are.
They really are. Well, what I had you on for today and what everybody's here to see is we want to talk about the flat earth theory. I have been fascinated I love conspiracies. I love all conspiracies. And I brought up before that I watch a lot of flat earth stuff, and I do. I've watched both sides. I usually look at things from both sides, but I was asking around for someone I could talk to about the flat earth, and your name came up more than once. So I reached out to you, and I'd like to hear what led you to believe in the flat earth.
Okay. Well, I mean, because of my history, I have been, I guess you could say, awake to many crazy things that have been going on throughout my life. I'm going to be 32 this year, and I've been doing this a really long time. And I think it was Facebook. I was on Facebook and I kind of was just surfing around online, talking to other activist friends, other so-called truthers. And in the side of my desktop screen, it had groups you might be interested in. And this stuff on the moon landing hoax kept popping up, actually. And so I can say that I was never a person who, I never insulted flat Earth because I hadn't even heard of it until I looked into the moon landing hoax. So I ended up joining one of these moon landing hoax groups, and they were actually talking about flat Earth. And there were lots of different mix of kind of people that believed it for a long time, several years. And then there were people who were new to it. And then there were people like me who were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait, you're saying the Earth is flat. So it all started, I basically just asked a bunch of noob questions and things like, well, if we look up and we see all the planets, they're round or they look spherical. So obviously that must be what we are. And after saying a few things like that, I was considered a troll and someone who didn't want to learn. I was immediately kicked out of the group. But I was so eager. Like, I was like, wait, why do these people believe that? And I ended up, eventually it is to where I am today, which is basically that I have more questions that just keep going than answers. And every time I can answer these questions, it only supports flat Earth instead of the globe. So that's kind of where it started and where it has come to today.
I put up a comment. Can you see that? I just wanted to test it, make sure it's working. Can you see that comment?
I think it has to go up a little bit. I have bad tempered glass on the side of my phone.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh,
But once
okay.
it goes up a little bit.
It says, are the trolls ready? Steve asked, are the trolls ready? But I hope that there aren't any, at least not any negative. I want us
Yeah.
to have a conversation because I want to learn.
Yeah.
Because, my next question that I would ask you is, what would you say the biggest proofs of the flat Earth were to you? Like, you told us how you came to it, but
Yeah.
what were like the biggest things that convinced you that the Earth is in fact flat?
Well, like I said, it always goes back to first what NASA said. And that's why I always like to remind people that I looked into the moon landings, and I just saw so much BS about what I was looking at everywhere, from the flight times to the images to there was a released film reel by NASA, I think, to one of the news studios, but I mean, you can view it on YouTube. And
Yep.
it was the first, I want to say the first hour before they actually did the footage of, supposedly taking this footage in space of Earth far away. But, they were talking about the film itself and creating this image depiction of their globe model. And then they were going to give it to the public and say that it was actually true. So all of these little things helped me to even consider that these images that if NASA lied about space and the moon landing, and I came to those conclusions, then what about these images that they have been publicizing since the beginning of their so-called, Apollo missions? What am I looking at exactly? And then I started actually dissecting these NASA photos of the globe. And one of the first things that I ran into was someone introducing me to a guy that I'm friends with on Facebook. His name is Math Powerland, and he worked for NASA. He was hired as a NASA artist, and I was going to wear my shirt too, and I forgot. I actually have a tank top, and it says photo or CGI. And it is a globe model that we have seen, a painting that he did, Math Powerland did, and NASA has used forever now. And So he actually, when he stopped working at NASA, he talked about, you can find him on YouTube, by the way. It's Math, Math, and then Powerland, NASA artist you can put in. And he actually talks about why he's been so open about this and why he thinks that he's not being taken seriously or threatened really by officials and members of NASA because of the way he chose to go about releasing the information to people. So that helped me really take a step back and say, maybe I am looking at a painting. Maybe I am looking at computer generated images. And I'm sorry about my dog
Oh, your
chewing
dog's fine.
So and then, I started looking at other so-called photos of NASA, and I started seeing, here, baby, go over here. Come here. Go down here. Go over there. So I started looking at all of these different globe photos or images that NASA was putting out, and you can even Google some of them of different NASA images, and you've got different globes that they supposedly showed in images to the public on nasa.gov over the course of several years, and none of them look the same. And what I mean by that is all of their continents are different sizes. One moment Africa is really tiny, and another photo by NASA of a real image of Earth, Africa takes up like the whole southern hemisphere. So and then seeing clouds, copy and pasted clouds, the same exact images multiple times on a photo, it's almost like how did I not see it? So I really got to that point where it was just one thing after the other, and no matter what I did, it was making me say, oh my God, how did I ever not see this? How did, and it was just domino effect after that.
Right. Well, that makes sense. And I get it. Like I've told people before, because I've had people ask me even why I would do an interview about flat Earth. And the reason is we live in the age of deceit. I believe that everything around us is a lie. And NASA is a fraudulent agency. I could cover that. I've covered the moon landing and how the moon landings were fake. I've talked about that. I believe that.
Yeah.
And I've never had anybody be able to convince me that I'm wrong with the evidence that NASA provides. Some of them have even had to admit to me that, okay, Sean, a lot of it's a little bit fake. They probably had to fake some of it for some different reasons or whatever. But if some of it's fake, then doesn't that make you question the whole thing? They presented it as real.
Yeah, I agree with
And the
that.
footage you were talking about is in a video called Something Funny Happened on the Way to the Moon.
Yes.
And it was made by British TV, a British television channel that got a hold of that leaked footage. And it's very interesting. It shows them faking the shot of the moon from space that is still shown to you as real.
Right.
So
right.
There's a lot to what you were just saying. There's a lot of truth to what you were just saying. And that is exactly why I would want to have this conversation.
Right.
And why I watch flat Earth stuff to begin with, because if I'm being lied to, I want to know how big it is.
Yeah.
But this is like the biggest. Don't you think? I mean, a lot of people have told me when I was asking for things to push back with, because I didn't want to just be a cheerleader for you, because I know we're living in the age of deceit.
Right.
But people were saying, well, how could you hide something so big? The Earth being flat.
I wouldn't think it would take that many people. I don't even think it took that many people to deceive us on 9/11. And because the entire system of elitists down to who we are, the common working folk, you have a pyramid. So if you think of a pyramid, you only can stuff a few people at the top of it. And it's called compartmentalization. And, you see this with businesses and stuff, especially construction sites. Not one person, unless you making the blueprints, sees the whole thing. But still, even so, the parts, what they're made out of, and who's making them, and how they get there, and how they, fund the money for these things. Nobody. And then you've got, the board of directors. So you don't need that many people. You just need a few people to indoctrinate or brainwash or deceive, and then those people go out and do the same thing. And it literally, that's how a pyramid scheme business works. It's, it starts out with one person, and then it spreads to two people, and then it multiplies and it multiplies, and doing this so systematically to trick us. And like you said, we're living in the age of deception, and I can't agree with that more. And I also agree that you said that them lying about going to space, them, just everything to do with NASA being deceptive, that's huge, because then it leads us to ask everything that they've told us is true. And, that goes along with the Earth and what shape it might be, what it looks like from really high up. And, that goes into a lot of other questions of, people start asking questions like, well, Rox, they can show us pictures of the globe. Why can't you show us pictures of flat Earth? Well, if you have a plane or a rocket or something and you got the money and you can go up that high and, in your own private airspace, or you can get the okay from government, let me know. Because
did you see that guy that built the rocket?
Which one?
The guy that built the rocket to go to space, and he's on Netflix right now.
No, maybe not.
Yeah, he was going to build a rocket to take himself out into space. I haven't watched the documentary because it's new to Netflix, but it's on there now. Apparently he did it. I don't know if he was successful, but he wanted to take himself up high enough to see. He is a flat earther, and was doing it to.
Who was it? It was. What was his name? Augustus. It starts with a P. His last name. The man that went.
What you're talking about, Picard.
Yes, Picard, and he went up, and I don't even know what you would call this thing that he was in. It was like a balloon that took him up, and he was in this sort of module, and he kind of popped his head out. And when he got back, his quote is something like, I looked down at the Earth, and it looked like a disc with an upward turned edge. And if you look to somebody like Admiral Byrd, who, was a leading pioneer in expeditions to the South Pole and the North Pole, then, it kind of coincides with what he was talking about. Because if you think of his expeditions when he went to the so-called the South Pole, he talks about there being this 2-mile high wall of ice. And then I start thinking, upward turn edge. And then I start hearing about all this dome talk, which, is the idea that there is some sort of a dome, possibly a glass dome, that encapsulates the top of our Earth. Almost like if you've seen the movie Biodome or The Truman Show, different, almost like an Atlantean conspiracy where we're almost in a bubble. And if you think of, the site of the dome, maybe that would be the upward turned edge. So there's a lot of things between Picard and Byrd that caught my eye when learning about either one. And the fact that, Admiral Byrd went on, I think it was 3 expeditions to the Antarctic, and then the government took over. He kind of got pushed out of the way, and the government went in and said, okay, we're taking over, we're taking this land, we're going to, start these treaties. And now there's something called the Antarctic Treaty to this day, where I think it's dozens, if not more, of militaries around the world protect the Antarctic zone underneath this treaty called the Antarctic Treaty. And they say, this is what the official story is, that they're protecting the land because it holds precious resources. Admiral Byrd did say that there were resources untapped by man, a plethora of resources, coal and oil and other minerals that were in Antarctica, and that's why they were protecting it. But I just think it's really strange that we're so worried about protecting Antarctica, where humans don't even live. And the emperor penguin lives in Antarctica. And then, we're putting all this money into protecting Antarctica, But we have 1 in 4 children here in America that don't know where they're going to get their next meal. So it's things like that where it's like, even if they are telling the truth about half of it, they sure as hell don't have their priorities straight.
Right. And
So,
she's talking about Operation High Jump. That's a real operation for those that want to look that up. I just want to sprinkle this in. That's Operation High Jump. And Admiral Byrd was highly decorated. And he did do interviews about this expedition and about the uncharted land that he had found.
with a
And he
flat
said
earth
that was really
behind him. Did you see
what?
that?
Well, I'm sorry. Say.
The black and white video that he did when he was in an
Uh-huh.
interview on television. There's a huge flat earth map behind him.
The flat Earth map was actually used. What is the name of it? Do you know the name of it? The
The one
official.
that
It was the official map of the world forever. It's called the equidistant or something like
oh,
that.
somebody abbreviated it. They abbreviated it to AE. So I think that you might be able to call it the AE map.
Yeah, but it's a flat Earth map.
Yes, it's a type of flat earth. If you put in like flat earth AE, they abbreviated that word, those 2 words that you're trying to come up with. And I can't remember how to pronounce them.
Yeah, I don't remember either, so I won't even attempt it anymore. But it's real, and it was used nautically and for all purposes. And that's what it says right at the top. Can be used for all purposes, equal and accurate. And it's
Right.
a round, flat Earth map. It is just like in the UN flag, they include the flat Earth map. Now,
And
you
even
could just say they're trolling, but it's interesting to me.
yeah. Yeah, and I've heard that too. Like maybe they're just doing it to mess with us because I mean, yeah, they like to mess with us. But the UN, which is basically a symbolic organization of everyone around the world coming together, governments coming together, it'd just be a little strange to me that such a large, widespread organization like the UN would use something like that if it was not a fact. Especially when they're pushing for something like one world government. I would think that they would have their stuff pretty accurate. Also, to be noted, the USGS has and still does to this day use the flat Earth map. They've never used another map, as far as I know. So it's not just the UN. And if you actually look at the UN map, there's no Antarctic circle. Like Antarctica is not on there at all. So they're wondering if it has something to do with the gold leaves that are wrapped around the symbolic flat Earth symbol on the UN map.
Right. No, it's very interesting. And the Antarctic Treaty that she mentioned, that is real and still exists to this day. And there are only certain areas you can go to in Antarctica. And people say they've been to the South Pole, but no one actually has. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. They take you to a fake South Pole.
Right.
No one's
I
actually been to the real one.
I was under the impression that it's actually known that if you actually do want to go to Antarctica, whether it's for anything, even if it's a major media outlet, they have to get clearance from the organization, the Antarctic Treaty, all the governments down there, and they are literally escorted. Their entire expedition is plotted out for them. It has to be approved. It has to be okay. And as far as I know, they can only go so far inland, so
Right.
away from the edge of the ice wall, which would make sense if you're hiding something. And it was Admiral Byrd who said, when he was talking on that black and white TV show that we were just discussing with the flat earth symbol behind, and he said that there's land out there that is the size of North America. And
He
potentially
did
land,
say this.
yeah, potentially land that's not covered with ice too. So it's really
He said
interesting.
there was lakes and valleys. He described it.
Hmm.
He did talk about other land other than ice. And
Hmm.
he talked about it was resource rich. And what area, anywhere, is resource rich and not being drilled and mined to death on this planet?
Right. Yeah.
And you could say it's to protect the emperor penguins and all of that, but it is kind of suspicious. So I get it. That's again, like I can't fault you for it. Like I am starting to be of the belief that Earth, as Ram said earlier in the feed, is more of like a realm that we don't even fully understand it.
Right.
That we don't even fully understand our reality, that we don't even experience it all. So I don't know that I would question and or mock anything that is put forth. But what as far as like research proof, like for somebody that's watching that's more science based, what is like a science based proof for the flat Earth that you think is a good one that swayed you when you heard it?
So I actually wrote a bunch of this stuff down because I really didn't want to miss anything today that I could get out there for everybody. One of my favorite things to say is that over 71% of our Earth consists of water. We know this. Even if you go into Google, Google will tell you. Um, but what happens to water when you pour it out of a glass, when it's, when it's raining a torrential downpour? What happens to that water? Where does it go? Well, as flat earthers like to say, it always seeks to find its level. It will, find holes and cracks and crevices, but it will always seek until it's spread out and flat. I think that has probably been one of my favorite tickers to get going and really start considering, could that happen on a globe? Could that happen on a ball? Can we prove that? I think that one of the things that they didn't clarify enough for us in school, or at least the majority of us, is what science really is. And do you have to wear a white coat or be pronounced a physicist to be a scientist? And
Right.
then you realize that anybody can be a scientist. It takes one thing. It's called using the scientific method. And for those that don't know what the scientific method is, it is number one, creating a hypothesis, and number two, experimentation. So taking your hypothesis and really putting it to the test. And number three is observation. What did you witness? What did you observe? What is true to you in that moment through your hypothesis, experimentation, and observation? And so we have been conditioned in the school system. One of the reasons I homeschool my son, because I don't agree with how instruction goes in government school curriculum schools, is that we are not teaching kids to think. We are teaching them what to think. And so there's no room for a child in any school to look up and raise their hand and say, well, yeah, but what about this? Or this doesn't make sense. Well, in theory, that's good, but how do we prove that? There's no room for that discussion in school. So by the time we leave school, we become adults, we go to work, we have kids, we have families, we have homes to take care of. And next thing we know, we're lost in life and we don't know why. And it's because we have literally just been going through the motions. We have been doing everything we're told. And finally, like you said, the age of deception. But the cool thing with the age of deception is everything is coming to light. These
Yeah.
conspiracies, these hidden truths, these agendas are being uncovered. What I call the quickening. Like, it's happening so fast. It's like every time you wake up, you learn something new and crazy that's going on, and more people are talking about it. So again, we never really learned how to perform our own scientific experiments, or understand that we might actually have to see and observe something in order to even consider it being true. The rest is hearsay. So I think that and I think that we beat ourselves up too. By the time we realize that we have been deceived, we beat ourselves up about it. We get angry.
Right.
And it's because we have been conditioned to never ask questions and to never put these things to the test that are written in the school textbooks, or in whether you're in pre-K upward through universities. It is very rare to find someone who can, by the end of high school or the end of their college, say, yeah, I did everything that I wanted and I learned everything that I needed to. So,
Right.
I just, it's cool. I have to say, technology, as Charlie Chaplin said in his dictator speech, technology cries out for the brotherhood of man. And if it wasn't for the internet, I never would have stumbled upon any of this. So
True.
it's because of, being able to connect with people on the other side of the world at the click of a button instantly. Someone was able to say, Rox, think about it. If a plane is flying, every 6 seconds, it's going to have to dip the nose of the plane if it's on a globe because it's technically going around something.
Now that is interesting. I discovered that watching and researching for this. I didn't mean to cut you off,
No, that's
but
okay.
have you ever seen Eric Dubay's 200 Proofs?
Yeah.
Okay. One of them is in there that the gyroscope on an airplane,
Hmm.
it always sees the ground as level. They don't have to dip the nose.
Yes, they use an artificial horizon in a plane.
On a curved surface, they would have to keep correcting to stay on the land, you would
Right.
think. I'm no super genius, but I was researching this because I was going to try to represent the ball earth side
Yeah.
and, give you a little pushback and stuff because I wanted it to be more, everybody learned something.
Yeah.
But I don't trust NASA. I don't trust a lot of the mainstream science. And what you were speaking of a lot just now was scientism, is
Yeah.
what science has become. Is
Right.
scientism like a religion where
Religion.
you cannot question certain things?
Mm-hmm.
So as a skeptic, I was having a lot of trouble finding things that I felt was acceptable to ask you to push back. And the only things that I really came up with was and someone would ask me to ask you is, have you done any research for yourself, like personally researched the flat earth?
Yeah.
You have.
They have I actually researched it?
Yeah, well, I mean, taken part or done an actual experiment to, like
Yes.
that you've seen maybe.
Yes, I have actually. Okay. So I don't even remember where I learned this. Someone just mentioned it to me. Now, I live in New York State. I live in Western New York, and we have family cottages up on the St. Lawrence. Okay. So the St. Lawrence is up north. I'm on Lake Ontario right now. If you take that, it connects to St. Lawrence, which eventually goes out into the Atlantic Ocean. So we have family cottages up in Cape Vincent where Lake Ontario meets the St. Lawrence River. And I pretty much grew up there. And someone said to me, have you ever stood on the shore of where the water meets the earth? A beach or something. And they said, have you ever watched the sunset? And I said, yeah. In fact, we have pictures. We're right across from Carlton Island. You can look up all these places to see where Cape Vincent, Carlton Island is in New York State. Canada is right on the other side. You can see Wolf Island and Canada across from us. And they said, and that's actually usually when the sun sets, that's where I'm looking between is Wolf Island and Carlton Island. So I'm looking right toward into Canada is right in the middle if you look across the water. So when the sun sets, it goes to the shore of Canada and it comes all the way to my feet. And I want to say, I don't know how many miles away it is, but a few miles out. You can see the reflection of the sun where it starts to hit the water over on the shore of Canada there, right when the water starts, all the way over to my feet. Well, we're on a globe, and about every mile you should see almost 8 inches of curvature. Okay, this is over water. How, if there's supposed to be almost 8 inches of curvature for those couple of miles, how are you going to get that reflection from where the sun hits the water over in Canada to my feet? It can't happen on a globe. So I actually proved this with my son because, again, I homeschool. And I ask him all the time. I always leave it up to what he thinks. And I say, well, when you look outside, does it look flat or a globe? And I go through different things. And I try to let him decide with his own senses what he sees. So we took a big pan full of water, and we just went into a dark room with a flashlight. And I basically narrowed the flashlight and it stretched across the water. So then we took our hands and we started sloshing around the water, because any bit of movement creates an unflat surface, an uneven surface, no matter what, no matter how little. And it would always cut out the reflection across the top of the water. So, it's little things like that. You can even do something like this with a laser pointer. If you have a good enough laser pointer, you can see from shore to shore. There's no curvature. And I'm talking, a good mile out, which you shouldn't be able to do if you have right to the ground, right above the sea level. So, what was the other one I was going to talk about? So I do have a telescope, and I go up to the Thousand Islands. There are lighthouses up there, of course, where the barges are, where the ships go through. And if you said that you've seen Eric Dubay's Atlantean Conspiracy 200 Proofs, Earth is Not a Spinning Ball, then you probably know this one. They say there are lighthouses that can see anywhere from 35 miles out to 65 miles out. And this would be impossible on a globe. They can see, if you think about it, a ship can be 30 feet. If you have a lighthouse, they can be about 30 feet up. So they're about same equal measure. They can still see down to the bottom of the boat where it meets the water. As long as the water is, like we say, like glass, there's no wind. Up there, it's not like, there's too much current usually like there is in the ocean because it's a lake where it meets the river. But you use a telescope and you will never see any boat as far as that telescope can actually see to its vantage point. That ships and boats will never disappear over any curvature. When you look down a hallway, you have something called the vanishing point. You stand in a long enough hallway, eventually the hallway seems to go up. The floor seems to rise up to the vanishing point. The ceiling tends to fall down to this vanishing point. So whenever you're looking out at something, your eyes can only see so far. I can't see that good. I wear glasses. I put my glasses on. I can actually see a little bit farther. Now, when I use my telescope over a large body of water, I can see out even farther than just my eyesight or just my lens on my camera on my phone. And ships that looked like maybe they disappeared or boats disappeared over some sort of curvature, all I have to do is zoom in with my camera or zoom in by propping up my telescope and looking out my telescope. So that's something else for people to be able to experiment with and observe for themselves. Go out if you can to a really large body of water, preferably maybe if you're in America, one of the Great Lakes, down a river if it's straight enough. There's something called the Bedford Flat Level Experiment. Have you heard of that, Sean?
No, I haven't. What is it?
The Bedford Flat Level Experiment, anybody can look up. And I think it was about 6 miles. I want to say it was done in the UK, but all of it is well documented. Everything's done on video. They were in a small fishing boat, and they put flags every mile. It was a very flat stream, creek, whatever you really want to call it. And for 6 miles out, they could see these flags. Well, that crushes any theory that, there might be any curvature, at least for 6 miles. There should be.
Do you know the figure for curvature?
It is
Offhand?
supposed to be 7.7 inches per mile squared.
Yeah, it's something squared, and then but it would be like there is another place. I think that test was in Eric Dubay's video, but there was another thing he mentioned, a mountain that you can see from a ridiculous, I don't want to try and even guess how far away, but miles and miles and miles, hundreds of miles, and you can see the base of it.
Because there's a shadow that's cast from it. Is it that one?
Is that why?
I'm trying to think of the photo. I'm trying to actually think of the mountain that you're talking about. I see it in my head. I know it when you're talking about because it's like above the clouds. It's not Everest though.
Oh, okay. But there are things that you can see from great distances that I'm curious about. There's a mountain that I was up in and I was looking out, and it does the perspective, or the people say it's because of your perspective that it looks flat to you when you see a large open area. It's
Yeah.
flat all the way around. Like you were talking about what a small child would experience. It doesn't feel like you're spinning. It doesn't feel like you're moving or on a ball.
Well,
Everything
that's
that your senses tell you is you're sitting still.
right. Well, we have physicists, and I don't even remember which one. It could have been Michio Kaku. It could have been, Tyson DeGrassi or whatever his name is. They have said stuff like, oh, the Earth is spinning up to 1,100 miles per hour, and it slows down a little bit, and then it speeds back up. And I'm thinking, like, you would feel that. You would totally feel that. There's no way something that's going that fast. I mean, everybody would feel that. In fact,
But
I
what
think,
people tend to say is that it's kind of like we're ants. And does an ant, like if say an ant's on your shoe and you get in the car and you're going 80 miles an hour, does anything change for the ant?
well, I mean, if you asked me that question, I would say, yeah, because I would feel it, I've had a tree fall in my backyard before, and I'm tiny compared, to a huge elder tree, and it shook me. So, I mean,
Right.
eventually, I think that the ants still feel if your foot's vibrating from the engine, going and everything you're going. I'd be safe to say the ant feels it.
Well, see in the comments right now, there's a little bit of an argument going on about gravity, and gravity being a theory or gravity being a real thing.
Ah,
So
gravity. I would love to talk about gravity.
so let's do that, because that's what they're talking about in the comments. And Neil deGrasse Tyson cannot even explain what gravity is. He always wants to change the subject.
Now, I'm going to go back to the scientific method where when something is proven, we know it, you use the scientific method, and the main component for proving something is observation. Because sometimes we don't have to hypothesize or even intend to experiment. We can find out on accident something just by observing it.
Right.
So, scientists say they propose that gravity, or something they call gravity, exists and is made up of these particles called gravitons. They've never witnessed them. They've never seen them. Remember that observation. They've never seen them, but they propose that they must exist as a model of theory of relativity to explain how things stick to a ball. That's how I explain gravity. When somebody brings up gravity, are you sure that it exists? Because nobody's ever seen it. We can see
And
that ball,
right.
it floats, but that's already been explained with density and buoyancy if you're talking about fluid.
That's what I was going to say anyway. But yeah, they can't explain it. That bothers me. Like, because I said I was going to push back. So I looked for science and I looked for things like that. And it's the same as when I interviewed Ali French about vaccines.
Yeah.
And they were, everyone wants to mock people that question vaccines, just like everyone wants to openly mock flat earthers.
Yeah.
But why can't you just defeat it with the science?
Yeah.
It's so hard to find real science where they show, okay, this is how you demonstrate curvature, so that
Right.
I could demonstrate it to you.
Yeah. Agreed.
I
That's
I tried to find things like that.
um something else that I think I read it or saw it on YouTube a while ago, and a guy was talking about Manhattan. So if you think about Manhattan, I think it's like somewhere between 13 and 14 miles across. There is a park close by, and I want to say that you could really look at this city, this entire city of big, tall buildings, which, 13, 14 miles. If anybody wants to calculate how much you should see in curvature, if you should see about, I think it's 7.7 inches per mile, just multiply that by, the miles and tell me exactly how much curvature we should actually see in these buildings. And then not only the curvature underneath the buildings, but the actual buildings would be eventually diagonally slanting away from you. It's just, and you can get a telescope and look at all these buildings, and none of them are doing that.
It is kind of interesting. And, I don't know if people would say it's because it's such a large plane. That's why you're not able to see it. But they don't, like Eric Dubay covered it in the video, and I couldn't find evidence. Maybe there's an engineer here. Someone had mentioned earlier that they were. Do engineers ever have to take curvature into account when they're building a bridge or something over a big distance, a large distance? Do they have to take curvature into effect?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same with the railroad tracks. They lay them flat. And I have yet to meet even a surveyor that ever has told me that normally they're confused when I, stop and ask them, but a surveyor will tell you that they never account for any sort of curvature when they're working their job. I don't agree with the Flat Earth International Conference, but I did go to the first one kind of to see what it was all about. That could be a different topic after I say this, but oh God, I don't even remember what I was going to say. That just totally put me on a tangent. Yeah, don't believe there's a couple of things I actually want to say in this video. So Flat Earth Society, is it Research Society or is it Flat Earth Society? It's one of them. Flat Earth Research
Someone
Society.
mentioned Flat Earth Society.
Yeah, there's a lot of shills in the Flat Earth movement. And I think it's because they're trying to mainstream it so they can eventually leak it all out. This is my theory, okay, guys? That they're really trying to leak it out slowly and almost propose it as a joke first, because I feel like time is winding up until everything's kind of just going to be all out there and everyone's just going to realize what's going on. But there's a Flat Earth Society, total shill organization, has very little truth sprinkled in it, and it's really to mislead people, I think.
What kind of stuff did they push that's misleading?
I don't even remember. I remember looking into it about, hold on, what year is it? It's 2009.
Are they the ones that claim pushing the earth up from underneath, and that's what makes gravity?
I don't know what's on their website anymore. This is back in like 2015 when I first looked into Flat Earth. That was the first thing that popped up for me. And I remember saying something to somebody about it, and everybody in this group chimed in. They're like, don't even look at that site. They're not true Flat Earthers.
I heard that a lot too about certain ones.
Yeah. So there's
when I was
that.
looking into it.
As far as the Flat Earth International Conference goes, same thing. At least the first one. The one that was in the UK, I actually talked to a lot of the guys that spoke at the one in the UK, but the ones in here in North America at, I think it was I don't know how to pronounce it, Raleigh, North Carolina. And we stayed at, I don't even remember what hotel now. But I was only there for like a day, and it got so bad that I called out some of the speakers personally.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, I asked one if he was a Freemason, and he got really mad and he threatened me. So,
Wow.
the thing that I didn't like about that, and I feel like they're trying to push Flat Earth mainstream because they're trying to make us look like a mega cult. It felt like walking into just that, a mega cult, and it was almost like a church setting. They were poo-pooing on anyone that wasn't a Christian, and I, even though I respect the Bible and a lot that's in it, I don't consider myself of any particular religion. I don't have a problem with anybody who considers themselves any particular religion. But there's people like Patricia Steer and Mark Sargent, and I actually had Mark Sargent, a guy that's supposedly very mainstream into the flat earth exposure, doing stuff on HBO and everything. He photobombed a photo of me and Carly Sunshine and a couple of other people, I think Cal Cunningham, and he's doing this like Masonic salute. And that's when I blew the whole Flat Earth International Conference right open. I was like, I had actually been approached by HBO, a guy named Brady, with a film crew. And before they were filming, he asked me, do you think that this conference is set up to make flat earthers look stupid? And I paused there for a second. I was like, what a question, dude. Like, so I looked at him and I was like, well, it'd be really stupid if they did, because eventually they're just going to be shown for, trying to make us look like idiots when we're bringing truth. But once, the first day started, it really turns into a very mega church cult setting, almost like Jehovah's Witness cult kind of. And so I think a lot of people aren't taking flat earthers seriously because of this sort of direction that they've been trying to lure a lot of flat earthers into. I don't know.
Right. So
Witness.
the misdirection campaign is
Yeah.
what's
Yes.
taking away. But okay, now you mentioned just a second ago, and that got me excited. Some people probably saw me light up, but you are not Christian,
Right.
and you're a flat earther. But um, well, I'm gonna back up a little bit. Do you believe the Earth is enclosed by a dome?
Um, if you look into my friend Martin Kenny, Martin Martin Kenny Kenny, he's on my Facebook friends list. He proposed something with Santos called the cosmic egg flat earth theory. And I'm a girl who has long studied astrology, cosmologies, ancient cultures, ancient religions, theology. I don't know if I said astrology already, but just a multitude, and even mythology. So I have fallen in love with everything about spirituality around the world. And Martin actually proposed this flat earth cosmic egg theory that really centers around bridging old religions and cultures and mythologies together to explain a flat earth under a dome with different realms, because flat earthers have always been arguing, is there more land outside this dome? Is there a dome? Or is it infinite land? And he proposed this flat earth cosmic egg theory, and it really baffled me because he jumps from, talking about the Bible to ancient Kemet to ancient Greeks' beliefs and even Norse mythology, Hinduism, and he builds this entire flat earth structure. And the dome is actually an electromagnetic field, what I believe. And it actually is funny that he proposed that, because it coincides with the Van Allen, or the radiation Van Allen belts made of high electromagnetic field of radiation. And for those that don't know what that is, it encapsulates Earth. NASA even finally admits this, that there is a radiation belt that nobody can get through. They've even said that in the last few years that they can't get back to the moon or space travel because it's not safe to, because of the radiation in the Van Allen belts. So he talks about that, and he talks about that there's a dome, there's different bits of outer land, and all I can say is you have to look into it because it's really cool to listen to him. If you know about Hermes, Buddha, Jesus Christ, these stories of Eden, stories of the Nephilim, he goes through all of this and he builds this world, and it's really fascinating. But it also coincides with something I read from Manly P. Hall in my book over here, and it's called The Secret Teachings of All the Ages. And he actually talks of a cosmic egg, word for word, in the book, and he says that Earth sits inside this cosmic egg and floats like a ship. And for Christians, because even if I'm not a Christian, I study Christianity. I have studied the Bible and everything. And they talk about, waters above, waters below. And I'm pretty fascinated by this. So this is my personal belief. Every flat earther is different. Some have never heard still of the flat earth cosmic egg theory, but I feel like more are really starting to consider this vast idea of being able to bridge these ancient texts, things that people were telling us even, thousands of years before the Bible was written, what the earth looked like. And people are always talking about, for instance, the Bible is written in parable and allegory. It's not to be taken, like I'd say about 90% of it is not to be taken as literal fact. but to be taken as allegory. And Manly P. Hall talks about that, who is a 33-degree Freemason. The microcosm, the macrocosm, as above, so below. So when you really start connecting all of it, you start to realize that the world is so much more magical and spiritually divine than NASA could have ever created in some poor computer generated image.
Right. Well, so, but if it's flat and motionless and still and all of that, it had to have been created,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So you believe like a higher being, but not a god, then? Like a,
Believe in God. I don't always use the word because I know, unfortunately, the idea of religions have corrupted the way men think, and they often will hear the word religion or God or Christianity or the Bible, and they'll just poo poo all over it. And I'm okay, I've gotten used to that, but I was one of those people too. And
right.
when I started researching the Bible and giving the Bible as much of a chance as I give all of these other mythologies and ancient texts, I really started to realize that something's there that's being missed even by most people who go to church every Sunday. So yeah, I believe in God, whatever you want to call God, the legislator, the great mind, the all, the source, the Allah, whatever you really want to call God, the higher power. I know that there is some great mind, and it came before all, and it it's written throughout all of mankind. And I think that science today has done everything in its egotistical power to pretend that they can play God and they can name everything. So yeah, I do believe in a higher power, but I am not religious. Like, I don't pick one religion. It's called omnism. If you
Is
can
that
say it.
what the name of it is?
Omnism. Yep. So
Right on.
Omnism. Omnism. And it basically just says that I not only opened my arms wide to all ideas and religions and cultures and theories, but that I try to study them as well, and I try to take what works for me. So it gives me a chance to like analyze everything and put it to the test.
But see, the reason why I brought it up is a lot of people in my research getting ready for this interview were saying that the reason why they would do this, why they would tell this big lie and
Mm-hmm.
create this web of deceit by saying convincing us that our home is something other than it is. You know, whether it's flat or upturned edge, or Steve mentioned earlier, hollow earth. We know whether there's something not true about what they're telling us. There's definitely some degree of a lie going on. But why would they lie? And people think it's because they're trying to kill God.
Yeah. Oh,
Because
absolutely.
if we're flat and motionless and encased in a dome or endless land or whatever the case may be, that proves a creator.
Yeah.
Which is why
Definitely.
I asked you.
Um, I wrote down that they, let me find it. I did write down one quote, and I want to say this real quick before I say anything else. I heard it on a video a couple of days ago. It says that we associate size with importance and power. And I remember when I first became a flat earther, it took about 3 days for me after being like, holy shit, the earth is flat. Oh my God. Like, that's all I thought about. And it took 3 days for the earth to actually stop spinning. And if I could put that into easier terms for you to, and the listeners to understand, it's that I didn't even realize that every day when I looked up at the sky, I had this weird idea that I was moving and hurtling through a vacuum, like, and just, oh my God, at any day, this black hole could swallow us up. And, or we could just crash into another galaxy like Andromeda, or just like, and what a lot of people don't understand is I was huge. I have Stephen Hawking books right now on my bookshelf. And it's not like I didn't believe in the globe. It's not like I didn't believe in everything that they were teaching me. I have been so interested for the longest time about where I live. And I think we all have. And that's why we'll start asking these questions. And I think that it's good even to have the other side, the debate still, even if I was never on that other side against flat earth. People are like, they're hungry. They want to know where we live. And it's definitely